Hello, and there's a big bang. Race for Michael Schumacher, who exits the chicane for the 53rd and last time to win the 2000 Japanese Grand Prix and the World Championship for the third time.
I'm simply born to race, and it's a natural ability I have to put the car on the limit and enjoy it.
Now there's fresh opposition for the top man. Colombian Montoya in the Williams. The Brazilian Bernaldi at Arrows. The raw Raikkonen, the Finn just 21 at Sauber. Marquez returning at Minardi alongside the Spaniard Alonso. All hungry and very keen to impress. Yes, it's a brand new Formula One season here on ITV. The first qualifying session is just over half an hour away. We have a beautiful day in Melbourne, Australia. And hello there, welcome to Albert Park. It is 22 degrees and rising here. I'm really sorry about that for all of you shivering back home, but listen, very well done indeed for getting up or staying up to join us at this hour of the night. You lot out there really are the hardcore Formula One fans. Now, this 2001 season is really tinged with a bit of sadness because at the end of it all, we say farewell to Murray Walker. But believe me, Murray is huge here in Australia. They hear all his commentaries, and the City of Melbourne and the Grand Prix organisers, well, they've been giving him the red carpet treatment ever since he touched down. And of course, Murray's going to be describing the qualifying session for you alongside Martin Brundle. He'll be here in the studio as part of our build-up to the Grand Prix tomorrow with his old mucker, Sir Sterling Moss. Joining me today, as always, Tony Jardine. Hi, Tony. Here we go again. And a new face, Mark Blundell, who'll be with us on a regular basis throughout the season. Mark, welcome to our little home. We'll make you feel at home, don't worry about that. But for you, and I guess for all the drivers out there, a bit like the first day at school.
It is the first day back at school, and new kids on the block, maybe a few new teachers with some new team owners, so it's going to be an exciting season. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, we all are, but Tony, we've never been here this early before. Do you think this Grand Prix has come a bit too quick for some of the teams?
Yeah, I think it's a race against time for everybody. It's the biggest regulation changes that we've had since '98. It's notable that they're all quite nervous about reliability. 41 laps into the final test, Schumacher's gearbox went in Mugello. He's practiced something like 29 starts, 7 pit stops. McLaren have had problems. Yet at the other end of the grid, we've got a miracle happening with Minardi actually getting 2 cars out. We're
going to look at that Minardi team very shortly, but let's first of all bring you right up to speed with what's been happening in the world of Formula One. There's a new tyre manufacturer in addition to Bridgestone, some new faces as well, but at the top, well, nothing really changes.
Ferrari are this year's leaders of the pack and finally have the cherished #1 on the car. They've worked hard on development over the winter, and world champion Michael Schumacher has been vocal about how good the car feels. Rubens Barrichello joins him for another season and is keen to add to his first race win in Germany last year.
McLaren are on the offensive for the first time since '98 after losing both titles to Ferrari last year. Melbourne marks the team's 100th race with Mercedes power, whilst Hakkinen lines up for his 6th consecutive season as teammate to David Coulthard, the longest running driver pairing in Formula One.
Williams were best of the rest last year and will be disappointed if they don't pick up a win this year. Ralf Schumacher stays for another season and is joined by Indy 500 winner Juan Pablo Montoya. There is tension between the two drivers, but they both say they'll do their talking on the track.
Benetton line up 4th for one final hurrah before the outfit becomes Renault in 2002. Giancarlo Fisichella starts the season in a positive frame of mind, but reliability could prove an issue in the early part of the year. Williams refugee Jenson Button should give Fisichella a run for his money.
British American Racing start the season in 5th place on one of 2 Honda engine teams. Frenchman Olivier Panis, who last raced for Prost in 1999, is back in Formula One after a year testing for McLaren. He will be pushing his teammate Jacques Villeneuve.
Jordan slipped right down to 6th last year, but are hoping the works Honda engine will power them back to winning ways. Heinz-Harald Frentzen has been putting in some impressive times over the winter, as has teammate Jarno Trulli. The battle between the two Honda-powered teams could prove one of the highlights of the year.
Experienced Dutchman Jos Verstappen starts his second season with Arrows, who have yet to score their first Grand Prix victory. He's joined by former test driver Enrique Bernoldi. The team will be using the old Peugeot engines, rebadged as AsiaTech.
Sauber have taken a bold step this year with two of the youngest drivers in Formula One. Nick Heidfeld moves from Prost to become the experienced member of the team. Newcomer Kimi Raikkonen from Finland will be under very close scrutiny. He makes the giant leap from Formula Renault into Formula One with just 23 single-seater race starts under his belt.
Jaguar has slid down the grid to 9th place. Former test driver Luciano Berti is promoted to a race seat, replacing Johnny Herbert, who's now testing for Arrows. Former world champion Niki Lauda comes in as senior manager of the programme, while Eddie Irvine is once again the #1 driver.
Minardi have taken on 19-year-old Fernando Alonso, the third youngest man ever to race in Formula One. He joins Tarso Marquez, who last drove for the team in '97. Australian millionaire Paul Stoddart stepped in just weeks ago to save the little Italian team.
Prost start at the tail end of the grid this year, but their customer Ferrari engines are a real asset. And over the pre-season testing period, Jean Alesi set a new track record at Barcelona. Alongside him is Gaston Mazzacani, who comes with 1 year's experience from Minardi. There's a new name coming into Formula One this year, a tyre company coming to take on Bridgestone head-to-head. Michelin are here, and Grand Prix racing is going to change forever. The first thing that happens in a tyre war is the lap times come crashing down. The two companies are both out to prove that they're the best. They're head-to-head. Now, these tyres are already 3 seconds a lap faster than the ones that finished last season, and we're only at the beginning. They're going to get softer and softer, faster and faster.
Since we have tire A and tire B, we are almost on holiday because there's nothing to do. Teams will do the job for us. They will try to evaluate both tires and make their decision for their strategy. But we'll try to learn as much as we can.
But there could be trouble ahead. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that once these grooves are worn down to slicks, the tyres are going to be much faster. That was no problem when there was only one tyre supplier. But now with a tyre war, the competition is going to be very intense. And if anybody's got an unfair advantage, worn their tyres down to slicks at the end of the race, you can be sure the protests are going to come in. And that may mean races being decided in the courts rather than on the track.
To compensate for the increased speeds which the tyres will produce this season, the FIA has introduced a number of changes to the design regulations aimed at slowing the cars down. The front wing will be 50mm higher, and the teams are restricted to running a maximum of 4 elements on the rear wing. The overall effect will be a significant reduction in downforce. There are also some new safety rules. Each wheel must now have 2 tethers to prevent it flying off in case of an accident, and padding has been added inside the chassis here to protect the driver's legs. The crash tests are also much tougher this year, resulting in a car that's around 20% stronger than last season.
Thanks, Louise. So, as always, Tony, the authorities are trying to slow the cars down. It ain't worked so far, though, has it? Was it 16 cars already inside last year's pole?
That just shows you how clever the designers are, because they've had these restrictions on front wings, heavier chassis because of the new crash tests, but of course they've got less elements in the rear wing, plus the tyres show how incredibly fast they can be. What we've got to wait and see is whether Max Mosley and the FIA act later in the season, because speeds are just going to come down and down and down.
So, I mean, best guessing pole in the upcoming qualifying session could be 2-3 seconds quicker than last year.
Yeah, well, Marky was just saying it could be a high 26 yet.
What about the new kids on the block, Raikkonen and Alonso and people like that? How do the established drivers, Mark, feel about this?
You're right, new kids on the blocks, the Game Boy generation, all these youngsters coming up. It's difficult to read them. People like Kimi Raikkonen, 22, 23 races. He's got no race experience as yet. So when you're underneath him in a corner, what's he going to do? I know for one that I'd be a little bit touchy about it. The big guys may complain if he does something wrong early on, but in terms of speed out on the track, he's good enough.
Well, first time on the track for everybody yesterday, and let's take a look and get your views on what happened to Michael Schumacher. What a spin this is.
Yeah, it just looked like he lost it under braking, lost the rear end, car broke sideways, then it hit that gravel while the car was sideways and flipped him over. Shook him up, but, you know, don't underestimate that guy.
Yeah, and they repaired the car. He got back in it again. Tony, what are your feelings about that accident?
Well, representation was made by Ferrari to the circuit and to the FAA about the gravel. They felt that it was uneven and it should be flat at least or inclined because the car appeared to dig in and go over. And I've not seen Schumacher have such a big accident. He's never been over like that before. So it shows how strong the car is that he was okay.
Right, let's have a quick word with the man himself, with the reigning world champion Michael Schumacher, with his thoughts on that scary crash.
Basically losing the car while I was braking for that corner. And the reason actually is a little bit to do with the yellow flag, which was pointed or was very difficult to see from my point of view, and I saw it too late. And when I saw it, I overreacted and then I had a spin.
Not alone, was he? It always happens first day back of the season. The cars go all over the place. Bertie in the Jaguar, was a studio guest of ours in Indianapolis, wasn't he, if you remember? And he's battling off Pedro de la Rosa now. He had a moment yesterday,
Yeah,
Tony.
Luciano Berti, you know, he's just had one race in Austria where he replaced Irvine. And he gets the wheel on the inside there, seems innocuous, and breaks on halfway through to try and slow the thing down, slams into the concrete wall there, does a lot of damage to the suspension.
Yeah,
Here's Nick Heidfeld coming up for you now, Mark. So this was just before Schumacher crashed, actually.
yeah, same deal. Come into that same corner there, just locked up under braking and just skidded off. But, you know, see the damage what it does just going into that gravel.
And Jenson Button's having a grim old time at the moment, Tony.
Yeah, he's had a warning, by the way, from John Watson that he should be a celebrity second and a racing driver first. But he's had a lot of problems. Had to change engines yesterday. He just got out onto the track and then the tyre punctured and then the tread came off. And he's had problems today with gearboxes.
I think briefly we're going to talk to him before the race tomorrow, Jenson. It's going to be a tough year for the boys.
Very tough, but I think it's going to be good for him. He had a brilliant year last year. I think it's going to be part of his education. I think he's going to really grit his teeth. Second half of the year, hopefully, it'll come good for them.
Well, now then, here in Melbourne, they're justifiably very proud of a local boy who's done good and gone out and bought himself a Formula One team. His name is Paul Stoddart. He's a Russell Crowe Gladiator lookalike, really. He's already shown all those fighting qualities by getting 2 Minardis in shape for qualifying in just 6 weeks. They really have had precious little testing, and just making the start would be a massive achievement for Paul Stoddart's team. The Minardis unveiled this week on the steps of the Melbourne Parliament. Here's Paul Stoddart chatting to Murray.
Paul, it's the realisation of a dream. How did it happen?
Well, Murray, a lot of people may not remember, but we had a go at doing this at the end of '97 with British American when they took over Tyrrell, and really we've been a Formula One team in waiting ever since then because we had the facilities, we had a lot of the personnel, and really we were just looking for the right opportunity, and Minardi came along just at the right time for us.
Well, you did this very, very late in the day. I mean, it was no secret that Minardi were on their uppers and you have literally saved them. How difficult has it all been?
Enormously, Murray. I think anybody who wasn't actually involved in it will never really understand what it took in 6 weeks and 3 days from beginning to end to actually get these cars to Melbourne.
What's your realistic hope for Australia and for the season?
Realistically, Murray, is just to compete on Sunday, to get both cars on the grid. I'll be the proudest person at 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon standing on that grid. And to be honest, for the rest of the year, we'll struggle for these first 3 flyaways, but after that, we really do believe that we can finish in the top 10 constructors. And that, for us, I think, is a realistic aim, and it's something that I intend to see happen.
Yeah, two drivers, Alonso, who is new to Formula One, and Marquez, who's driven before, but not for a little while. We're going to take time to shake them down?
Cheers. I mean, every other team by now has done some 5,000 kilometres of testing, but I think with Fernando, he's a driver I watched last year in 3,000, and I put money on him for Rookie of the Year. There is a real talent there. That kid is going places. And as for Tasso is hungry, having done 2 years in kart and having unfinished business in Formula One. And you watch the first 1 or 2 wet races we have this year. Keep your eye on Tasso, Murray.
Now, the last man who made it in Formula One as a private team owner, and he's gone on to great things, is Eddie Jordan. A lot of Formula One teams have fallen by the wayside, and it's getting more and more difficult with manufacturers getting in. How do you rate your chances as surviving?
Well, obviously I know Eddie very well, and Eddie was one of the first people to actually congratulate me. And, you know, I think I'll pinch his lines, but he said if anybody can do it in Formula One, it would be me. I don't know whether that'll be true, but if just sheer determination and hard work counts for anything, then we're going to be okay.
Every success, you deserve it.
Thanks, Murray.
Yeah, we wish him well. Just 1 point, just one single point this season. That will be a huge success for Minardi. Around about 15 minutes to go to the qualifying session at Albert Park, and not too much movement down there in the pit lane. Heck of a journey it is from Europe to get here. And there are very few complaints from anybody once you arrive. Right then, here is Martin Brundle's view of the first hurdle of the new F1 season.
Albert Park, Melbourne, 3.3 miles, 16 turns, a very difficult racetrack to start the season. Why is that? Well, so many of the sections are very similar. 180-mile-an-hour arrival speed into technical third gear corners. If your car is working, you're having a good day. If it's not, it can be a nightmare. Let's take a look. On board then with David Coulthard in the first instance, heading into that pit straight. He's going to make it up to 7th gear, just over 180 miles an hour as he heads into turn 1, named after Alan Jones, the Australian Formula 1 world champion. Difficult to see that first apex, you must touch it, and if you hit the sweet spot, you don't have to lift the throttle again through the exit. Now, down towards turn 3, could be called Brundle Curve, just under 180 miles an hour this time, and a bigger stop, down to just 50 miles an hour. Check our information on the right, the rear tyres showing red as he transmits the 800 horsepower, correcting the car through 4, sweeping through 5, now through the trees, the canopy, difficult to see the braking point, 160 odd miles an hour. This is where Michael Schumacher rolled the Ferrari into a ball on Friday. Coulthard correcting a long right-hander now, loads up your neck with the G-forces and it loads the tyres. Look at the data on the right as we head down to 9. An easy corner really, hook that first apex up and the track opens up nicely as the revs rise. Coulthard on his way down to turn 11. This left-hand kink in the straight, no problem at all. And 180 mile an hour arrival, still doing 130, immediately into 12 and 150 already on the exit. Coulthard's McLaren working well. Let's compare that with the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello as he heads into turn 13. And look at the amount of steering lock he had to put on through there as he homes in on the Jordan. A trailing throttle then through 14 into 15, the slowest corner on the circuit. First gear then just around 45 miles an hour. You have to have a sixth sense to watch the car in front of you, but keep your line, which Barrichello does nicely through that critical last corner, Prost. And once again, you're over the grid hatchings into the pit straight.
Well, there we are. The Aussies says it's a great place for the race. Do the drivers feel that way?
They do, they do. The street circuit here is great. It's fast, it flows. That's a major thing in a street course for everybody. They've had a day of running, cleaning the track up. But of course, qualifying's coming up. The heat's going to build up. Let's see what happens. But it is a great track and a great place.
Cleaning it up, that's because it's used week in, week out by the general public, yeah?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the roads are used by everyday road cars. There's oil, there's gunge down on there. There's, there's now Formula 1 rubber on every corner and under all the braking areas. And as the rubber gets laid down, the grip will pick up, the times will drop.
Well, what about, we always come here and it's always roasting hot. I mean, did you feel that genuinely affects the drivers? They should be used to it by now, Tony, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they are to a degree, but, they've had a winter off and now we see who are the fit guys and who aren't, because, the two fittest are acknowledged to be Coulthard and Schumacher. They work very hard at it, but we've got to think about people like Kimi Räikkönen, who's going to try and do his first full Grand Prix distance in this kind of heat. Got to think about Häkkinen, and he's thinking about his kid. How's he going to get the baby seat in the back of the old McLaren,
I'd just like from you, I mean, if you cast back to your first ever qualifying session in Formula 1, and we look at the clock now, and there's around about 10 minutes to go, and the emotions that the newcomers are going to be feeling at the moment.
Well, I think most of the guys now will just have 10 minutes to themselves. Formula 1's so busy these days that they're going to be, piling in with pressure from the media, from the team. But they just got to lock themselves up and lock their brain away and just concentrate on doing that one perfect lap. And if they get that, they'll be fine. But it is a lot of pressure out there. I mean, if you're 19 years old, just think about it. You've probably got $150 million riding on your shoulders at this point in budget.
Absolutely, and they're all set to go in around about 10 minutes' time. Let's just look ahead to the calendar for the rest of the season, shall we? Pretty much unchanged. Malaysia next, and then it's Brazil. The British Grand Prix, well, thankfully, that is moved back to mid-July. Very much the same venues as last year. 17 races in all. Bit of a 3-week holiday in August. And Japan, that is going to be Murray's farewell commentary. Well, this time last year we were focusing on Jenson Button's Formula 1 debut in the Williams. He's taken a couple of years off in Benetton, of course. And his replacement, Juan Pablo Montoya, comes very highly recommended. The Colombian has never raced in Formula One, but he's dominated champ cars across in the USA. He is tasty. Montoya blew them all away at last year's Indianapolis 500. He won the race at his first attempt. And he's been chatting driver to driver with Mark.
Well, Juan, me and you have raced together over the last couple of years. I have to admit at this point, you know, you've impressed me a great deal.
Very much.
You've now come to Formula One. I've been here, I've done it some years back, and I think you've got a great future ahead of you.
Thank you.
What do you feel about the season ahead?
I think it'll be a tough season on the perspective that, you know, there's a lot of things to learn. But I think it should be quite good, you know. I don't see, you know, from one time to another we cannot perform quite well. But I think tomorrow will be all right. You know, I don't think we have the pace of our McLaren or Ferrari, not even close, to be honest. I think, you know, the chassis needs a lot of work, and the tires as well. You know, the engine looks better, but you always need to improve something.
You've been driving in America for the last couple of seasons. Obviously the cars are a lot different. Engine, turboed, different tyres, the weight of the car. Have you adapted to a Formula One car okay?
It wasn't that difficult to adapt, to be honest. I think the car was really good when, you know, because I took the first car I took, it was the end of the season, so it was pretty much maxed out. So the car felt quite good. And now with the new car, we struggled a little bit. I think it was quite weird because Galami test was really good. And then we went to the last Barcelona test and we didn't really understand what happened to the car. And we got a bit lost there, and I think we're trying to find our way again.
We've driven against each other over the last couple of seasons. You're a very confident young man. You're now up against Schumacher, Coulthard, Hakkinen. Do they phase you?
Not really. I think you gotta do your job and that's it. You know, if the car is fast enough to beat them, you gotta try to beat them. You know, if the car is not fast enough, then there's nothing you can do. You know, you gotta make the car right and then push it.
One of the big differences between here and America is the media pressure. How are you coping with that?
Car atmosphere is a lot better in a way, I would say. Definitely better is the word. You know, this is a lot more stressful and people are a lot more tough, but you know, that's what I picked to do and that's what I'm gonna do.
Juan, you're my tip for the top for 2001. And there's a lot of guys in the States who are resting their laurels on you. Go and do your job.
I know. Oh well, thanks.
There we go then, that is his tip for the top. That fella's making a load of noise. Just hope he's not flying us home. They do tend to put on all sorts of displays here in Melbourne. There he goes. Okay. I'm sure our sound boys mean that we're coming through absolutely loud and clear, Tony. Now, Mark tipped Montoya to hit the heights and do the business. Do you agree with that, or is he going to be another Zanardi?
No, I think he will be great, but it's interesting when he arrived from the States, first of all, the team were a bit perturbed about his sort of size.
Fat boy, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, the journalist suggested to him that he'd stolen all the pies, so that was the first thing. But he has slimmed down. He is enormously talented. Mark said when he was in the States, he was awesome on cold tyres, incredible talent. But what we have to remember, he doesn't care what your name is. If it's Michael Schumacher or Jenson Button, he doesn't give a monkeys because they don't exist as far as he can say. He's a very confident young man.
Well, let's just take a look at one or two of the big names, shall we, that he's going to be up against. And first of all, Rubens Barrichello. Very, very quick yesterday, Tony, but trouble for him this morning.
Yeah, he went into the pits complaining of problems with the engine. They sent him back out, and just as he went back out, the engine blew.
And there's Schumacher with more problems today.
Yeah, but he complained of a vibration on the left front, and he tried to get them to crane the car out of the way. That's all it was. We feared it was an engine at the time.
And we haven't mentioned him so far, but David Coulthard quickest in the second practice session today, Mark.
Yeah, DC's on a mission. Looks in good shape, fighting fit, and this is the year. He has to do it, and I think he's going to win plenty of races.
Let's hope so. OK, then let's have a chat, shall we, with a fella who likes planes. Crikey, owns a load of jets, doesn't he? Eddie Irvine, winner here a couple of years ago, and going very well. 9th quickest this morning.
I think we can, to be honest. Coming here, I thought we were going to struggle, but Michelin looked like they've done a fantastic job on the engine. I got a new engine for today, and it's a really good step forward. So we'll see. And the handling of the car is pretty good. We have a bit too much understeer. We have problems trying to fix that, but you know, it's going better than I thought.
Eddie, 2 cars in the top 5 in the morning session. What chance of repeating qualifying?
Probably not much. The situation is that Ferrari McLaren, I still believe, are quite strong, stronger than us. But I think we've made good headway in the winter. I think we've designed a nice car. And we've seen the full effect of having a works Honda engine. It's quite considerable, I promise you.
OK, well, Eddie Jordan playing it very low-key there, Tony. Cancelled the Christmas party and all that, didn't he? But it's a good start for them so far in Australia.
It's an excellent start. We've got to remember they were gutted by finishing so low down in the World Constructors' Championship. They went out on a limb with a quite risky car last year in terms of reliability. They compromised the reliability. This year, they've got the speed and they're trying to get the reliability back. They've gone very well in testing. And as Eddie says, with the Honda Works engine, they're going to be a force to watch this year.
OK, and there are the McLarens, and Mark, you weren't with us last year, but Tony, what a terrible time they've had in the last couple of seasons, haven't they?
Well, they have, if you think...
Not in qualifying, in the race, I should probably say.
In the race, you know, and Hakkinen hasn't finished the race here for the last couple of times. Last year, one after the other went out with hydraulics problems, and let's hope it's better for them this year.
It's an absolutely beautiful day here in Melbourne, and we're very nearly ready to go for the qualifying session for the Australian Grand Prix. See you shortly.